Hi friend, today we are revisiting an old idea, an old video that we made here on the channel, where I just kind of rambled and rambled using words that didn't really make much sense contextually, so some of you found it relaxing, so I thought we'd give it another try, so here we go. I believe you owe the consideration of the able-bodied morale to the company of your nomination. The attraction in your skin is a consultation to the addition of the rejection to which the branch of bar theater so did cutting Congress. Finished dropping incapable cups of collapsible licenses, though you hover negligent government industry, lace about an impressionable face, or even a leg of fish. Chocolate is a childish freedom, spontaneous and fleeting, though you choose to ignore the fossil ideology, which is an allocation of beam shift makeup. The ballot of noble inflatable fools, brushing worryful snorts of derisive comfort, secures a glass premature of despair. The pigeon will splurge, sensationally shivering, ensuring a manual squeeze at the elbow. No fragment of a hen should interrupt the celebration of the committee or object to the new whisper. Biting the knee of the blonde conclusion is an investment that is so radical, complications of collections may erupt at random. Now, this is to say, if a merchant cake could lead the director or priestess into a secure cigarette, the driver of the museum must make an inquiry in the plane. Heavy is the password that is blonde of the maid who makes salmon safe and can cope with the clock. Spend time in the environment and in the hallway, but never in the departure of stress. Orange computing simulations dream of a deep payment which wins straight mathematics in the yard or cemetery. Film the exemption of disposition in a cruel pop. The fax car is peaceful, but the deer is continuous. This is the gift that you have to offer the decay. If you lease your pot, you must take a hike, an arrogant but advisable absorption of poor appendixes. You miss the twist and circulate expressly through a risky race of gas. In large, bland, pivotal thinking, experimental is fussy and needs to be spied upon. The horizon plant is accurate. Don't compromise. If you must disappear from perception, say a passage is likely to parade through your concentration. Fast and jockey, the metal destruction is not to be recovered from. Discuss suffering and stewardship and flatware, perhaps even a coverage of isolation so acute that your liver would never recover. A plain plane in a seminar jacket arrives gratefully to the Queen to pull upon a fade of deep variant. Define the innocent cultivation of a stable, the construction of an economic cabinet, a mug wrapped around a nun, first the rack toss autonomously feeling ignored, residence requirement for a torch pass to retreat into a metal edge. The core of the Constitution is a talkative volume, honestly a model that is officially driven to drag helpless ignorance and troubled shoulders through a lengthy and unnecessary acquisition process. But teachers are radiant, hit with instruction that is temporarily to relinquish the surface of their avenue. The night in which they swear their obscure gift never arrived is the consumer observing transparency. A berry example of a pepper is a fool, showered in graphic, divide, predictable professionalism. Such concrete is soaked in correspondence. Statement lion must secondly vague last to fish, the king's crude meat-thrown interrogation to an ally of mixture and sacred rifles. Sturdy, secure, simplistic perception is the only thing that will lead to your salvation. Reduction in an avoidant wood or a jury of notebooks can clue you into the mainstream recklessness of transportation. And if you dare to dread the needle, elaborate with your wife perhaps the censorship of the tube and the natural bracket of inspiring meaning. The extraterrestrial sin is to be lifted when you dine. Tie up your lip, hobby, and budget carefully, because the sacred issue is liability, horror, and mood. Not bounce, not middle, not space, but cereal. Flock does the pigeon on a constitutional collection of captive concentration. It is with this that you are mobile. The corn must pray in uniform in order to awaken the ancient spirit that flushes out the fashion of loose clinics. Pump the minority, deviation, club, and story clock, for the soprano waist is captive. The monster of weakness is a fiber and systemic report, frozen responsibly for the research of confidence. Sea rise and dairy motorcycle, biology legislature can slant a reporter in an appeal to participate in the news. Restoration is the difference between lifestyle and the moon, while the view is in custody of a familiar job, loose with grain about the court. Agile is the relative chord, and the car does, in fact, have a terminal. Hypothesize the way to urine consumption. Ideally, you will keep the flourishing to a minimum, but you must drive through the confines of patience and find motivation in the summer sounds of toast. Dangerous is sympathy, for it can elapse into a truck, and from the outside the berry may not sustain omission, but the conference will try to spit out presidency. Exaggerate and defend the complication of excavation, for the poison is the poison of posture. You must equip the village and deflect the cinema, foundationally personal. Revolution is necessary to serve and to demonstrate the close penalty of the island, to minimize the intrinsic vegetables, the shallow strain of print, and the squash elephant. On the third day of agony, you must dedicate failure to captive architecture, and the Federation will inflate the brave and sail into the fountain. The location of history means business, but to disappear automatically is a nomination for world speech. My consumption is constraint, conversation, trust, and reasonable staff is an inevitable ring. Glasses can number rocks, but offspring braid hostile opposition to coincidence. Your fan is representative of indulgence and can include kidneys, because the overlook happens to inflect the dump. But perhaps the stream preferred doors, or even dorms. Dogs tiptoe, signing clusters, straighting and extending slowly through the lifestyle of deputy. Pauses and bolts are in vain to expand the elapsed traffic yearning for deficiency, but to buy violation is a frame of the stun. Brother can be extreme and the retire to lead, but the development of commission is a lobby that the inhabitant of high morale, diplomat, and smooth counsel will never age. Set the admiration of blame on consumerism and delete the dry shelf. Rid yourself of the institution of glue and arrange a captain of pain, electron native, fashion and incredible, forward, really, for possession of fiber. The design of the hemisphere will prove still that the owl worries not about prayers, but the hostility of notions. Perceive me sharp, always. In order to find an apt staff member, you must wear class, call the cart, and spell the blue discoverer. Agile though your continuation of a breakdown may be, the inn is a gesture to treaty. Provincial parking, mind you, the agenda, for the insight of the missile may check the demonstration. Shoot the ally who has the attitude of tracking an increase. Mainly, leftovers execute sympathy and artificial letters of the lamb. Long combination of digress, and kettles are a principle of family defeat. Variation of the drum, contract paint, and poem in the steam are not means for the peasant to be satisfied, but rather are praise for the finance, the few. The year the activity root takes hold in the stomach is the literacy union. It will widen the spokesperson comprehensively and buy a horseshoe. The solution, I'm afraid, is to equip the blonde code, radical and umbrellaed under the minor, certain point. Linger with the pony, chase the criticism and commitment over the quarrel in the application of pottery. It is a tip most commonly lobbied by a scratch. Slant the meaning behind the inclusive freezer, and use the node to loyalty wisecrack. Grimace not when you stumble, but stain for humanity. Drum on a struggle, momentarily bond your economic allocations, harbor a brush and a parachute corn. An economy crisis is nothing more than bald chocolate. Whisper like small colonies, and to the contrary investigation tell miserable jokes, and graphic discrimination compacts bland anticipation. Swear suffering and concentration exaggerate good executives, but the meadow's failure should not overcharge tin. Drum and don the wisecrack of background. Notice concrete rib. Random bin experiences can enlarge a sport, or a microphone can seize communication. Soup has no voice, otherwise the lover of admiration may threaten exclusivity. The episode of the pretty is the threshold that the limit ejects, and deport the antenna for variable evenings. The volcano glass is in the curriculum, courtesy of the definite recovery, handy in the nest. 1 minute in a valley, the next an inquiry. Account your carrots. Golf is in the line of motorcycles, and constructs are a test. Rain results over coincidence, cherry dates, and absorption into the fade. Scratch budge, lay out hope, fitness governor, accept the diplomat, and the side remark shall be advertised. Dress withdrawal, go to college, but don't forget the tick context. Ecstasy is a scandal, and radio assignments can play the organ. Bow to the lake, and your departure will soon be updated, likely the scrape at the start of resilience, but to achieve annual scheme, the rest bell must toll. Jacket your tender, private thinkings, and grimace still at the pioneer whose shallow miss codes the insistent business of blackmail. Shock the strap of Axis Corner, and add provoked veterans to hook the favor of the dessert. Feast on the bullet building and expand fraud wagons, quietly weakened by the rubbish of young ambiguity. Observation of protest and journaling practices are ideally in contrast to the prisoner of serial. Extreme dorm courtesy is cruel, and interactive letter pony harvest countryside timetables. Partnership perfect acid celebrations, council story of flights, and candle bedroom windows. Sometimes the fitness of a kid is the activity of a junior, and restaurant offenses are spontaneous, but a paragraph of x-rays can sometimes lease the relationship in a format that is consistent with a fussy diameter. 1 minute a preoccupation will become transparent, while the other will harm a contradiction. It is hard to carry a map and test out the oven, so touch the soprano and find out if innovation is at the top or is astride. Telephone marathons often climb custody and neglect the printer in the neighborhood, so hide the sock, call the exact release date, and be friendly to the secular stimulations. Fashion is perfect, but the dilemma lifts when giant preachers feather fright and interrupt the crowd. Spot a bragging master and layer your introduction well with the deficit of admiration. Chew your turkey, slip the franchise, and become comfortable in fame. Tell the transmission to arrest the guilt that is exploding within the gold. Frown upon the shop whose fish is slump, and the announcement of man will trail a sick transaction merchant. Immune to the date and the alarm of cows, scan silver shapes native and honest to marriage. Blast lace upon a workshop that increases toll, and expect suits to ranch sharp hooks and buy irony in the village. With a packet of steam, the fireplace will stretch to inactivity. Friend, I hope you understood all of that. I hope those words of wisdom were helpful to you. and I hope you are nice and relaxed. Good night, friend.